Welcome to the Sober Social Podcast, a show dedicated to helping individuals in recovery. For this season, we'll be bringing you individuals who helped me through my recovery journey. They played a vital role for me. Through this season, we'll bring you inspiring stories, expert advice, and helpful tips on addiction and recovery. Whether you're in recovery yourself or you know somebody who is, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. All right, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the show, the second episode, Sober Social Club podcast. Today, I have my siblings. Stephanie, say hi.
Hi.
And I have my brother also, Sam. I have two of them. These two guys, man, they are absolutely atrocious. We get in trouble together, and basically, they are also trouble for me most of the time, the way I see it. But you know what? I wouldn't do it any other way, actually. Couldn't do it without him. The places we're going and the things we're going to do, I don't know if it would be possible to do it without him. So super excited to have them on the show. I don't have to thank you guys for coming. You didn't really have a choice anyways. So good thing you both showed up on time. So good for the both of you. Very good. All right, let's get right into it. So Stephanie, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Stephanie. Half of my family calls me Coco. Another half will call me Waka. And some other people will call me Ego. But to be honest, my name is Nwakego Stephanie Okwobo. And I live here in Scottsdale. I love to cook. I love to clean. I love to hang out with family and friends. I have a really small social circle. I appreciate art, music, dance. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Very, very elaborate introduction. Just a friendly reminder, this show is about my life, not yours. So as we go on here, I don't plan to share the show with you. Sam, all right, go ahead. You're up next.
My name is Sam. Family calls me Sammy. Before we go to my interests, I live in Scottsdale also. Some of my interests are working out, sports. Grew up playing sports, so I've always been a big sports fan. Spent a lot of time with family and friends. Also, I like music a lot of genres. It's good music. I enjoy it. That's about it, though.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Sammy. Thank you. Man, there's so much we could talk about, but for the purpose of the podcast, our goal is to explore what it means to be sober, the journey, especially in this season, of how I went from being an addict to being sober. So I'm going to start with Stephanie because me and Stephanie basically grew up together for 6 years, right? 5 years? Because Stephanie was born second, actually. I was born first. So I was the first one. I was born in 1993. Stephanie came about...
Hold up.
What?
Hold up. For the purposes of this conversation, I can admit that I was born first. I know I do look young, okay? But I'm older than these two individuals on my left and on my right. I'm the first child born in 93 in February.
Why did she say my birthday? I was born in 93 in February. What are you talking about? I'm just kidding. So Stephanie is actually the first. I always tease her, but Stephanie is the first. She was born in 93, and about a year and 6 months later, I came around. What's the first memory you have of me?
First memory I have of you is a party.
Really?
It's actually a little people's party where he and I were dressed in the same outfit. I remember my mother bringing this outfit. It was green. She brought this outfit. And I remember thinking, I might have been 3 or 4 years old or 5. I know it's before 5. And I remember seeing this outfit and I'm wondering, why would she put two of us in the same exact outfit? So I'm a girl, he's a boy. And so that's what my brain said. And then the outfits were very different. So those were my earliest memories of the fact that there was somebody with me.
Yeah.
There was a sibling there.
Wow. So we were together for like 5 years. What are the memories you remember in that time before Sammy was born?
Oh, I have a lot of memories before Sam was born, because Sam did not come until it was when I was 7 or 8. Sam came along.
7.
Yeah, 7.
I was
6. Well, he was born exactly on my birthday.
We'll
explore that.
Yeah. I was 7, and there are lots of good memories I have. We had a lot of mischievous times. We had a lot of adventurous times. I remember there was a front yard, and that front yard went through quite the evolution. First, it was all mud, and then it was sand, and then at some point they tarred the place. For people who are not Nigerians, where we grew up is very swampy. It's somewhere that it rains so often at. So what now happened was my dad realized that there was flooding. So what happened was they increased, or they tarred the place with something called cement. I don't know what Americans call it.
They call it concrete cement.
Concrete. Yeah. Thank you. So we played a lot in the sand in front of the house. I remember before we moved out of the house, we lived in a different property. And I remember a lot of things about the property, because in the evenings, my mom would take us, or during the day, she would take us to our grandma's house, which wasn't too far away from where we actually lived.
So and in those interactions, I was with you.
You were with me.
Because I don't remember some of them, but I remember some. But I think your brain...
with me.
Yeah.
You were with me. So much so that every time, because it's different when you're an older sister.
Yeah, okay.
You're cognizant because your mother tells you, like, make sure you watch your little brother, or be good to your little brother. So in my brain, I always had someone behind me who I had to watch over.
And I was the someone.
You were the someone.
That's very funny, because I thought I was watching out for you.
No, you were watching out for me.
I thought I was watching out for you.
You were watching out for me. It was the opposite. And that's why there's a lot of good memories about you. And you were very mischievous as a child.
Oh my gosh.
Highly mischievous. And a lot of times when people see you right now, I wonder if they know how mischievous you are, because I know that there's a very big mischievous person existing inside of you.
Really?
All the time, yes.
Yeah, well, you got to keep that guy in. You can't really let him out all the time.
I mean, you see him from time to time when he smacks your phone across while he's passing, like...
Pay attention.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, so do you remember Sam? How about Sam?
Oh, I remember the day Sammy was born.
I do too. I remember the day Sammy was born.
Sammy was born on the day I was graduating from 5th grade, which is essentially 6th grade.
I remember mommy coming from the hospital with Sam.
Oh, Sam is the reason why mom did not show up at my 5th grade graduation.
Oh, you still carry that grudge. How do you feel about that, man?
Honestly, I don't even know.
You never remember?
I don't remember any of this.
Yeah.
Wait, what's your earliest memory?
That's the thing. I'm trying to think.
What's your earliest memory with us?
It's interesting because with me, it's like you guys have always been in the picture. So it's like I'm trying to think of like the first time. When you think about your earliest memories, when someone comes into it, but you guys have always been in the picture. So I'm trying to think of like...
Oh, so you're saying basically you think your childhood were there?
Yeah. So it's like in my mind, I'm trying to remember like the first thing I can, like maybe it'd probably be like the eyelash story.
Oh, really? You remember that?
He couldn't remember it because he's a baby.
Yeah, you were really little when we did that.
It was a baby.
The infamous eyelash story is...
Because I feel like I do kind of remember... How old was I?
You were a baby.
Wait, let me tell something. Why don't you tell the story?
Okay, so Sam, like I said, Wilson is very mischievous.
Okay, no. You were there. You held the mirror up. We curled the eyelashes together.
And
then you brought the scissors. I just
he said it was you convinced me that his lashes are really long and we needed to help trim his lashes, okay? And keep in mind, before we had even met Sam, my mom had been in labor for quite some time. Right. And I remember the family saying, my grandma wanted us to pray with my mom to have Sam, or so Sam can come. And so when my dad came back and my grandma came back, they said, the baby is dark skinned. The baby has long nails and long lashes with a lot of hair. Right. So obviously we felt the need to help trim that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember that day clearly. He was laying on the bed. Like we had set him down on the bed and he was just laying there. You held the mirror. We looked. We tried to trim it. And then it was like, oh, no, crap. And then didn't we also shave his eyebrows at some point?
We shaved his eyebrows at some point?
Oh, my mom was so upset when she came home and shaved his eyebrows. But those were really good memories, though. Those were really, really good times. And then, so, Sam, do you remember feeling the absence from us when we went to boarding house?
Oh, yeah. I feel like as time goes on, it's like it feels shorter than it was, but I think back then it was a lot longer.
It felt long. So you were really missing us?
It was more like... You guys were always in a picture, but I know there's periods of time where it's like I was the only child.
Yeah, like
Yeah, it felt
I
like
feel
I
like you
was
were isolated quite a bit.
And I remember, like, for the longest time, I spent a lot of time with mom alone.
Yeah.
So it was
Ooh, how was
always
that?
me and mom for, like, I remember, like, long periods of time because I think I remember dad traveling a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So
A
dad was
lot.
never, like, really, so, like, a lot of things I did when I was younger was with mom. So wherever she went, I went. So
Yeah. How was that for you?
it was okay. I mean, I
So
feel
you,
like that's
wow.
why mom has such a strong, I feel like, protective attachment to me sometimes because, like, of those times we spent just me and her. I think
I feel that.
maybe
I feel that.
that's probably where that comes from because when you guys were off in school, me and her would just, like, spend a lot of time together.
Yeah.
Where
What would you guys
wherever-
do?
Whatever mom, like, did. It was, I remember, like, it was
Yeah.
we spent a lot of time in the church.
Okay.
So it was like a lot of church activities or whatever the church had going on was what we were doing that
Wait,
day.
on a scale of 1 to 10, how mischievous was Sammy? Probably like a solid 4, whereas I was like an 11.
You were past an 11, like.
Okay,
But
well, chill out. I was like an 11.
Sam was not mischievous, but he was a talkative child.
Yeah,
Sam, you could not do
ITK. I too know.
anything
Sammy
in
knew too
front of
much.
Sam. It was just a matter of time. That's especially before boarding school. It
Yeah.
was just a matter of time
Till he
before
ratted you out.
Sammy.
Sammy was a snitch.
Sammy would agree with you. You and him could steal together the little, bits of
Yeah.
cake. As soon as mom passes,
Literally, I remember that so much. The way Sam
keep
looks
no
now
secret.
is completely different from how Sam looked when he was little. And so I remember Sam just like getting scared really quickly. Like when we'd all get in trouble, Sam would get scared really quickly. Super quick. You can see it in his eyes when it was about to, that'd be the first thing you see. Like all 3 of us would be lined up according to height. And for some reason, Sam was always shirtless. So Sam was this shirtless, skinny kid. His head was bigger than every other part of his body.
Exactly.
And so you can see it in his eyes because right before Sam was
Sam was naughty.
right before Sam would snitch, he would look right. He would look at you.
He said,
He would look you in the eye before he
person.
snitched. Like
You didn't even have to probe him. Like at some point, whenever Sam was passing, everyone in the house would be still
we would
because
stop. We
yeah,
used to call him CNN.
CNN, yes.
He would tell everybody what we were doing. Literally, we would all be lined up right when Sam was about to snitch. Sam would turn and look at you,
It was you.
and then he would go, "Mom, it was him." And I was always the one getting in trouble.
Sam.
I was always the one getting in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
I think a lot of that I used to be so scared of mom.
I know.
Like, I was frightened
I can
like
tell.
mom would do it would take one look from mom, and it's funny because I remember talking with you guys about this earlier, and I was like look at mom now, and I'm like, why was I so scared? Like, well, mom would give me one look and like, just know you're on your own.
Yeah.
Like whatever, like.
We
'Cause
did.
I was not going down with you.
Yeah. No, seriously. It was really good growing up with you guys. It was really great. So, okay, fast forward, then jump. We moved to America. Sam, I feel like you were still a bit isolated because we went to high school together.
Yeah.
And you were like struggling through middle school.
Yeah.
How was that? What was that like?
I mean, it was third grade for me. So
it was third grade?
Yeah, it was third grade for me. It was an interesting adjustment. I feel like I didn't really adjust till maybe 6th grade was when I felt like I adjusted because, like, I mean, moving to Cave Creek was definitely a huge difference for me because, like, I always felt like my accent, first of all, was like super thick. So all the kids knew I was from somewhere else. I felt like I had to kind of blend with the culture and like adjust because it was always questions like, what was it like, where you're from, who did you live with, do you have family back there, stuff like that. I think sometimes, like, at first it was cool because it felt like I got a lot of attention, but then it was like, I just wanted to be like everyone else, just be a normal kid. I feel like that didn't really happen till 6th grade because I think by then I'd become more like the culture and my accent was a lot less. And I feel like I understood a lot more. So I'd say like it took probably like 6th grade to really get adjusted.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Do you feel like your experience was different because than ours? Like, how do you feel like your experience, like just looking at like how everything is, how everything went, how do you feel like your experience is different from maybe me and Stephanie experience in high school?
I feel like I had more time to adjust. So that's the way I look at it. I feel like you guys, but again, you guys were older, so you guys kind of knew who you were already because you were, and it seemed like
You think I was exploring who I was? I think is what I would say. I was starting to
I
kind of
still
like.
am even exploring who I am.
True.
You know, and you will continue to explore that.
I get that, but I feel like you guys had more of a concrete,
Yeah,
like
formative
we knew,
years. Yeah,
we
right,
knew,
like you guys knew you were like Nigerian, and you guys knew like that's what I mean. Like you guys,
at least
Proud.
brain
Culture,
formation.
right.
We had like our brain had like because we were
about-
12, 13 when we moved here.
I was 15.
So I was 14. So
I was about
you were
8 or 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right. Okay.
I was about 8 or 9. So I was still trying to like figure out like because I understood a lot back then in my head, but as time as I got older, I realized a lot of the things was just me trying to just adapt and like kind of get used to being in the US.
Right.
Let's say.
Right on. Okay. So that makes a lot of sense. I feel like I thought I knew America based off of what I like because we'd visited a bunch of times. So I feel like I had an assumption of what it was, but to come to later find out that like, oh man, it's not exactly what you think it is. Actually, quite different, right?
Yeah.
Like, how about you? What was your
experience like?
Yeah,
here?
like in high school, because I don't feel like you were extremely quiet.
Yeah.
You were very secluded, very quiet, great grades. You had all A's.
Yeah.
Whereas me, on the other hand, I just basically did not apply myself in high school at all.
Yeah.
And I just had a ton of friends.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that it all boils down to personality. My personality is quite different from you and Sam. If anything, my personality is closest to Sam, where we have a tendency to be secluded. Sam doesn't seem like alpha male when it comes to making sure that you're passing everything, you're being a straight
Well, but he is. So let's just point that out there, right? I know, not even right. He is, but he might not just show it.
Yeah, he doesn't show it in the way I do it. You might say that I'm type A, and most people don't realize it. It's only when they catch me working and doing schoolwork and I'm not looking at anyone else. That's when you catch me. But most people just assume I'm a playful person. So people might be shocked to know like, oh, you're straight. And I get that comment all the time. They're a little shocked when they see the grades. But when I got into high school, two things were involved. One was I realized the kids here, they were curious, but sometimes there was a little bit of disrespect attached to that curiosity.
Right, 100%.
I realized that in order to navigate this place that I've been placed in, I had to take on a tough skin or like thicker skin. So that made me and I was always a secluded and quiet child, but that made me even more quiet than anything else. The second thing is that I realized real quick that the kids they didn't have quote unquote good kids, good traditional kids where we went to high school at. We went to high school in North Scottsdale. We went to school with kids of multimillionaires, and some of them will come to school high. And so I realized real quick that, okay, I can't find a buddy in here. And the buddies that I have in AP classes, they are in a way snobby. One, two, they might assume that given that you're African and you have an accent, you probably don't know as much as they do. And it's not like in high school there's anywhere where they say, this person is doing XYZ in class. It's only your instructors that know what's going on what your grades are.
Wow.
So the assumption is, well, maybe this kid is not so smart given that she's from XYZ place.
So that's interesting because for me, man, I dived right in there.
Yeah.
We had a cousin who was in school with us. He was active. So I was active too. Like we were getting in trouble. He got in way more trouble than I did, but I was getting in trouble too. I was in there, man. Like I had friends. It's funny because Cactus Shadows is where I got introduced to drugs. And like you had a friend who did a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
And I had friends who did drugs too. But somehow they convinced me. I convinced myself. I didn't want to. They convinced me. And I did try it. How did you not try?
To me, it was very simple. And that's what the type A person might say. It was very simple. You don't do drugs. You don't do drugs. That's just, it never crossed my mind to try it.
I accept that response on the record, but I can't accept that response because I think I'm also kind of type, okay, let's not say me, because maybe I'm not type A. But I think there's people who are type A that do drugs too.
Well, that's the thing. Some of us, I realize that some of us have a way of looking at the world. And when I come across those people, I know them real quick because of the things they say and the way they process things.
Wait, did you ever get offered?
Offered many times.
So you just knew the first time you got offered?
To me, it was just simple. It was like, Stephanie, like, oh, it's so cool, try it out. It's like, no. Like, in my brain, like, why would I try it? So it didn't make sense to me.
In my brain.
From outside looking in, it kind of seemed like she was okay being alone. I feel like with you, you wanted to have friends or you wanted to get along. She didn't have that problem. Like, she didn't, I mean, it's not really a problem, but she didn't have that incentive to be like friends with everyone. She was just cool. I just do my own thing.
Like, I think I agree with you.
So I think that's the difference there. It's like you wanted to be around everyone. You want to be part of the cool kids.
I definitely wanted to be part of the cool kids.
Right?
But get this, I have friends that I've known since kindergarten. And whenever I go to Nigeria, they're like, hey, take one puff. It's not that serious. Like, why don't you just try it? And these are friends that I could, if I lose that contact with them, that's that. I have maybe 3 friends in the whole entire world. So if I lose this one,
I'm going to go ahead and call cap on that, first of all.
I don't have a lot of friends.
Like maybe 5, I think.
Maybe 5, and that's if they're even up to 5.
Yeah.
Like, as far as...
And that doesn't include blood related.
No. That does not include.
You're talking about non-blood related.
Non-blood related, less than 5.
I'm probably leaning around that number too. Maybe 10.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah. So,
especially because of business.
Yeah.
And it's probably maybe 3 people, 4 people. I'm not doing business with you.
And they offer, and I don't care where I'm at. Like, I'm not going to do something because someone else did it or someone else wants me to do it or someone else thinks it's cool. So long as in my brain, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I think now at this point, like, that makes a lot of sense. But then that didn't really, like, to my brain, it was like, this is what you did here, and this is a great idea. You should try it. But that was really the beginning of, like, the roughest patch, like, in my life, basically. Especially you. When did you realize that, like, oh, shit, I think he tried drugs, Mom? Or, like...
Oh, when I realized was actually in Cactus Shadows. It was you and our cousin. The 2 of you told me that I needed to lie for the both of you. And I think I even agreed, and I did lie.
You probably did.
Yeah, I agreed to lie for the both of you so that you guys can go, oh God.
Yeah.
go about your business. You both said you had to go to a party. So I think that after the party, I was like, something is strange going on here. But I didn't think much of it, and I wasn't curious either. That's another thing. I wasn't curious either to know exactly what had happened. But all I know is that between our cousin telling me the story of your little escapade, I figured that y'all must have been up to something. Now, the consequences of the something y'all must have been up to, I did not know. It wasn't clear or evident to me.
Yeah. So, because we were young. Like, you were probably 16?
Yeah.
At this time?
Yeah.
I was probably, you were probably 17. I was probably 16.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you knew something was wrong.
Yeah. Something was wrong.
Off.
Something was off.
So you knew something was wrong. You didn't know. Did you think something was wrong, or are you thinking something's changed?
I thought something was off. The reason being that, and like I said, you were a very mischievous kid. But in my brain, I had to always protect you. And protecting meant that I needed to shield you in a way from trouble. Now that I look back in retrospect, that is not what protecting meant. But it meant that I had to shield you. So I knew that there were other problems going on.
Okay, so wait, so you didn't say anything. You were quiet, you ignored it. Probably maybe a couple more times. And in your mind, you're shielding me.
In my mind, I'm shielding you by not saying anything.
But now in retrospect, you're saying that you don't think that was the best move.
That wasn't the best move. And the second thing is that there was also a sense of naivety. I wasn't naive in every way, but I was naive in some ways as far as the using drugs.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the effects were. I didn't know what to recognize. All I know is that I had been offered many, many times, to get a hit from pot. And I knew that there were people who came to school high. And I knew that, get this story. So when I was in 11th grade, a kid had made wheat cake and offered it to other kids.
They're called brownies.
Brownies, thank you. Oh, sorry. They made brownies and gave it to the other kids, and some of the kids did not know. So I know that I was in class, and a kid in my class went, like he was trying to take off his clothes. He almost lost it.
Really?
Yes. So I knew that this pot that kids were doing, and some of them were stable. Some of them tried it, and and they lost it.
Wow.
So, and they felt, and I've heard many people tell me the story. I have a friend who's told me the story of how it happened, the same thing happened to her.
Yeah.
So that's all I knew at the time. So in my head, if Chucky wasn't doing this, obviously it's not that bad.
Yeah. Okay. I see. Sam, how about you? When was the first time do you remember?
With you?
Yeah, the first time you noticed that
It'd have to be, because in Cactus Shadows, I never really noticed anything. It was when it's Sunny Slope.
It was a Sunny Slope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Sunny Slope when I noticed something was off.
When he says Sunny Slope, what he's talking about is we moved quite a bit when we moved here. So we'd moved to Sunny Slope, and this was the area we were living in. The high school there was called Sunny Slope.
Yeah, I think the first time I noticed was probably your eyes were really red one time, I think. And I had no clue really about like weed or drugs and stuff. I didn't even know what it was, but I knew something was off because your eyes were really red, and like there were certain tendencies, like I'd see maybe certain like things around the house, and I'd wonder what they were or what you were doing with it. So I didn't really understand it, but I knew something was off. So I'd say that was probably the first time I noticed.
I see. So basically, like you would see like paraphernalia, all that kind of stuff around the house.
Yeah, and like I was very curious. So I would maybe sometimes I'd go through your stuff to see if what was there, and just put it back just to see, because I knew something was off.
Okay, so basically that was the first time you noticed something was wrong.
Yeah, that was the first I can remember noticing something was wrong.
Just to add to what Sam said, that was around the time that I realized, oh shit, there's a problem. Excuse my French.
No, oh really?
Yeah.
You did too.
That was when I realized that there was a problem.
Okay, so it went from something is different, something's wrong, and there's a problem.
Oh, there's a real problem. Even at that, still, I shielded.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's explore that a little bit, because I think there's probably a few older sisters that shield. And I think that's good. And I want to explore it from your angle, because I don't know what it feels like. I don't think you really enabled me. I think maybe because you didn't have the means necessarily to. I don't think you did at all. But I want to see it from your perspective. How do you feel? Because you're talking about shielding. Tell us more about that shielding thing.
So what that meant to me was to make sure that you didn't get, even if you were in this season where you were doing the wrong thing, to me, it felt like I needed to protect you from the elements, such as sometimes you would fall asleep in the car or fall asleep in random places. I had to make sure you get into bed. Whenever someone might say something was wrong, I'm like, no, nothing is wrong. When you disappeared for some time, I would call, are you okay? You're okay. If you're okay, then everything is fine.
Yeah.
Protect you in a way from family and friends and people who might talk bad about you or see you as a bad person. So to me, I felt like I had to cover you and cover for you in a way.
Right.
And so, but I realized really quickly in Sunny, because mom was working at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mom was working she was working in-house. So what would happen is that she would work and she would stay over for 4 or 5 days. Mm-hmm. So I had to work to make sure food was on the table at the time. This was when, because I never went to Sunny Slope. Yep. So I was babysitting so that you guys could eat and I'd make meals and stuff like that.
It was extremely tough.
But I had this other brother, so I felt like I had to protect you.
Yeah, I see. Absolutely. And at that time, we were starting to get involved in that in church.
Yeah.
quite a bit. And
Yeah.
so I could see how people would probably be like, what's going on here? Like it was starting to really, really show. I didn't even think about like that point in my life. Did you also notice the same thing going forward as well? Like, was it getting worse and worse for you, Sam? Noticing it?
Yeah, I'd say so. Because I thought, because that's when I got curious and I started looking through your stuff and trying to understand. Because my whole thing is I didn't understand. I knew something was off and something was wrong, but I just didn't understand. I think I was in fifth or fifth grade. I'd say about fifth grade. So I didn't really understand exactly what you were going through or how to navigate it. So in my mind, I was like, something's definitely wrong, but I don't know what's wrong.
But it was pretty clear to you that something was definitely off.
Right.
Wow. This perspective you guys are giving me is really, really like great and crazy because I've never like thought about it like that before. That you guys were like, you guys knew something was wrong, and on the back end you had to protect me because I mean it got worse. Basically, there were many, many issues that came about. Relationships. Let's go chronological. When was the first time I broke each and every one of your trusts? Like you, Sam. When was the first time you were like, I can't trust this guy? I don't know if you had that experience. When was the first time you were like, oh, this guy has sold this sibling bond out for drugs?
I mean, it's hard to, I don't think it ever, I can only think of maybe one memory, but I feel like it's a lot further than like Sunny Slope timeline. It's more
It's ahead of Sunny Slope or behind Sunny Slope?
It's ahead of Sunny Slope.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, what was it?
I think that was a laptop situation.
Oh, that was hers.
Yeah.
That also affected you?
Yeah, because.
But did you know?
Oh, I knew.
Oh, you did?
I never said anything because my things like, I feel like there's a lot of things that happened in the house that I knew about, but I never said anything because I didn't know. In my mind, I'm like, because you were in so much trouble that no one believed you. And the reason I never said anything was because I remember moving back to like when we were in Sunny Slope was because I remember when we had this big family meeting and you're already getting in a lot of trouble. And I thought like, me going upstairs to grab one of your...
Remember that story.
You're right.
Can you tell that story from your perspective? Like the whole incident?
From my perspective, we're finally having like a talk about what's going on with you and we're trying to get it resolved. And
so this was at Sunny Slope.
Yeah.
The same time, everybody's starting to see there's a problem.
Right. And like mom is, and like,
I don't think in Sunny Slope, Sam, in your memory might be a little wonky.
No,
it's let him. If
we were at Puget.
Yeah, exactly.
We were at Puget, so I remember it had to be Sunny Slope because we were at
It
Puget.
was, yep, I remember that.
So when we were there, I remember like, we know what's going on now. And I remember like, I think mom was asking if there was anything else. He needs help and I need to like, go upstairs and grab because maybe you do need the help. So my mindset was like, okay, let me just go grab this thing. It was not more about you getting in trouble. It was more about trying to like help you because maybe you don't know how to ask for help or what's going on. So I grabbed it and like, so I remember bringing it downstairs and I was like, hey, this is what I saw. I know it's something wrong with it because I remember it was a highlighter. This is not a normal highlighter or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like,
it was a little.
So in my mind, I'm like, okay, let me bring this down so we can just squash this whole thing. I'm like, because you're already in trouble and like, we know something's off. I remember bringing that down. I remember it making it worse. I remember you being like very upset. And like then I remember Stephanie being upset with me too, which I didn't understand at the time, but now I can understand now, maybe a little more. And I thought like me doing that would make things better.
Yeah, and the point out you were like 11 or 12 at the time?
So I was like 11 or 12. So I thought like in my mind, I was like, okay, if I do this, like this is gonna be helpful, even though he might not understand it. So that's why. Because back then, I remember feeling like whatever mom said or mom did, like I always took that with huge like in my mind, like if mom's like there's something like I need to do something. Mom is like
need to help,
right?
And I gotta say, man, like I think you shouldn't really feel any type of way about that situation. I think you did what was right or what was like. At the time, like, I mean, like, and especially hearing you talk about it, man, like that was that because your brother needed help.
Right.
And you were in the right mind to be like, okay, somebody needs to know about this because there's this weird thing here that like is polluting our residents. Like there's this weird thing here that's like not supposed to be here. Something's wrong. I mean, you didn't have any knowledge about it. I could see the confusion on your face. You had no clue. And I think shortly before then, I'd come over with like, I don't know if you remember. Well, we can mute that name out too.
Yeah.
But I'd come over with this one guy that I was friends with, and we'd brought over some other friends to the house, and we'd gone swimming, and like basically we're hanging out. And I was like, I thought about that for a little while. And I was like, dude, like that's weird. Like your little brother is home. Like you should probably not do this. Like here. Like, and this is like you're exposing him to the wrong things and all that kind of stuff. So fast forward from that story.
Yeah. So fast forward to the now where I'm in middle school, and I remember I felt like we went through a period where everything was great and like things were like looking up, and it seemed like, and then I remember this whole situation with the laptop, and I remember it being such a huge deal to where it's like in my mind.
Yeah. Wait. Let's have her tell that story.
Okay.
So you want to tell the story about the whole laptop issue?
So our dad was going through dialysis at the time. Yeah, he was going through dialysis. Not dialysis.
No,
right?
not dialysis.
It was
It was
a filtration.
It wasn't dialysis.
It was for his prostate. So
Yeah.
it was some form of drainage. He had to go every day.
I didn't even know that. First of all, you knew this?
No, I didn't know that.
Okay.
No.
We didn't even know anything was happening.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we had no clue.
No.
So dad was ill. He had to go to treatment every day. So I gave him my computer. It was this rose gold MacBook, and it was the first of its kind, actually.
It was. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Beautiful little computer. Gave it to my dad. He needed to use it. He took it to treatment and he brought it back. When he brought it back, he swears he put it on the bed. Now it disappears 100%. Mind you, I had worked so hard and made a lot of money to be able to purchase this computer for
Absolutely.
school. And so when it disappears, my dad says to me, he says that nobody can find it. I look everywhere. I ask everyone. No one can find it. And about 2 weeks later, my dad says to me, I think your brother stole it. I'm sure your brother stole it. That's what he said. He was like 100% sure. So I was like,
That was probably one of, okay, rewind. Fast forward to rewind. That was the beginning of like me starting to take people's things.
it
for my
wasn't the
addiction.
beginning.
Was it the beginning? For my addiction. That was like, okay, it wasn't the beginning, but that was one of the like, I don't know. Like, I think, I'm trying to remember any other stories.
It wasn't the beginning. There were also situations of monies disappearing, and you'd ask questions. Who took it? Who moved it? What happened with this? How did it happen? And there was no accurate answer.
And nobody knew.
And no one knew. So, but I was beginning to get a sense, like I said, I was naive about addiction at the time. I was beginning to get a sense that one of my siblings has sticky hands, but I never processed it. And then there was the other situation where my grandma called me. She said, look, he had gone to someone's house and something or some money disappeared from the someone. And the person was very upset about it. And I wouldn't call the names. And so I thought that was crazy. So at that point, it was like, okay, I can't protect him anymore as I used to, because now things are getting really, really like crazy out here. And so that wasn't the first time or the second time. By the time the laptop situation was happening, it was like, there we go again. But I guess in a way, I have to point out that you never broke trust with me.
Really?
No. Because to me, if there was trust broken, I wouldn't leave my things out.
Really? But would you say then that was breaking trust with you?
To me, it was like whatever happened. And I guess it has to do with the way I rationalize things and the way my brain processes things, especially with my siblings and, with people in general. It's very difficult to say that someone broke trust with me. So in that way, you did not honestly, because there was no time that I can recall that I would hide my things from you or try to keep my things in a particular way or act any different because you were there. Because to me, you were just Chuki and that's who you are. And there was nothing that made me process your addiction in a weird kind of way. It just...
Really?
Yes.
Wait, Sam, how about you?
My outlook on it was a bit different because I was just couldn't understand. I didn't know those two things were connected, were related. in my head, I was like, I didn't know it had to do with that. I just couldn't understand because I remember how I knew you had it was because I remember Coco being very upset, like very, very upset. I feel like I never seen her that because Coco, she's always been a very calm and collected person.
Right.
She never got upset. And I just remember her being so upset about it. And I was like, if this guy, because I remember she made a comment and it was like, Wilson, if you took it and like you gave it back, like no worry, like you won't, I
Yeah.
promise. Like I remember that comment and I remember her being, because I know she easily let things go and she's not someone to,
Mm-hmm.
so in my mind, I'm like, there's no way she's gonna make this comment and like be truthful about it and tell you something like this and like you still admit you don't have it.
Yeah.
Because I know if Coco says like, hey, if you give it back, all is forgotten. Like I like don't no problem. It is what it is. And like a moment of weakness and like all if you as long as you just give it back.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I was like, does he really have it? Because on my mind, I was like, I wasn't truly sure because it was until I went into the car and I looked in your bag and I saw it and I opened it up and I saw her name and I
Oh,
knew.
you did?
Right. But in my mind, I was like, I remember like thinking, I was like, if I brought out this laptop, I was worried. I knew if I brought this laptop out and I showed everyone, when I told everyone, I feel like it would create this huge line because I remember that moment just being like a crossroads to where it's like you almost like you had one more strike or something. So in my mind, I was like, if I had brought out that laptop, especially after you just said, it'd almost be like signing you out of like the because the main like I remember mom and dad were there, so my mom was like, okay, maybe it's best like I let this one like ride just to like make sure because I didn't want to have you in a situation where you wouldn't because I feel like a trust like that would be like how do you even come back from that?
From that.
Right. So I
Yeah.
couldn't like because everyone was so upset about it and everyone
Yeah.
was so sure, but and after you just saying one more time you didn't have it.
Everybody asked. Like
Right.
they asked and everybody asked and asked and asked over and over again. And you know, this podcast idea and this, it takes a lot of courage to do this on you guys' part and on my part too, because like this was something that I was like, man, like for the longest time, even after that happened, haunted me, right? For the longest time. Cause I was like, dude, like, because I knew you really needed your computer. And I knew you really wanted to have your computer back.
Mm-hmm.
And like Sam said, like there was a moment where you said to me, like you were like, dude, like just if you just give it back, it's all good, man. I still love you. Like everything's still okay. Like if you just give it back, like everything's good. And at that point, if I hadn't already sold your computer, I probably would have given it back because I could see, right? Either that or if I hadn't already, like, I don't know, the shame, everything tied in. Like, and you know, like Sam also like touched on something. He said, we went through like a really good patch, right? Which was like, I think I was sober for probably like solid 6 months. I got that great job working for Apple and it was like 6 months I was sober, but then I just couldn't like hang it, right? Like, and it was just like, man, I got back in again and I started like using it again and it just got really bad. And I thought about that. That's probably maybe one top 5 things in my life I wish I never did. And so as I went on through life, I was like, you cannot die with this secret. Like, dude, you have to tell her. And not only tell her, but you have to replace it, right, with one better. And I remember when I replaced that computer for you. No, I never did. I never bought you a new computer.
You didn't. But the thing is that before you started business, you called me because mommy said that your brother was going to call you. I was in South Carolina at the time in nursing school. That's when you called. But the thing is that daddy had already confirmed it to me before he passed. That you were the one who in fact took the computer. I know you never said it and you were never honest to anyone about it, but daddy was sure that it was you.
Yeah.
And daddy was very intuitive.
Yeah.
More than any of us, you know,
100%.
we might say Sam is intuitive, I'm intuitive, but he was the original intuitive character.
Absolutely.
And so he said to me, your brother took the computer, but it's fine.
Yeah.
So I knew it wasn't news. And that's why, in a way, I believe that. That's why I feel like, I don't know if you ever broke my trust.
Are you sure I didn't replace that computer?
No, I'm 100%. I lived in Charleston.
Because
There's no
I'm
way you could
pretty
have mailed
sure
it.
if I didn't replace it,
Look, sir, if you want to pay me for the computer, you can send me that money. Okay. We need some money in that account.
All the bags I bought you have replaced that computer, all right? So chill out. I thought when I made that call, I thought there was like a...
You were starting out business. It's not like the money was everywhere.
Oh, really?
You were just starting out business. And there was an incident where, there was a little bit of raucous inside of the family, extended family. There were people on one side. There were people on the other side of the equation. And mommy said, one of the things you had to do in order to solve this problem whereby people feel like, you might be up to no good.
Mom was not the reason I called you. No.
Mom, that was what mommy said to me.
Well, of course, that's probably what she'd say. But she was absolutely not the reason I called you.
She called me to tell me because she said she knew.
No, I told her that.
Okay. Well,
right?
she called. Of course, she inserted herself in the story.
Yeah, of course. But she was not the reason I called you. And I'm wondering if we should skip timeline to get to that. Sure, I'll skip for a second. As I started to get better, right? As I started to get better, I moved back home. At this point, Daddy had died, and I'd basically made a promise to myself. And I remember, man, I don't know if I should skip. Okay, I remember. So fast forward, you're in Charleston,
yeah,
and it's me, Sammy, and Mummy in Cordillera. Is it Cordillera? No, that's not what it's called.
No, it's not.
The condo off of Scottsdale.
Yeah.
Greyhawk,
yeah. And I do not like life. I do not like the life they have either, right? Because now I'm not doing drugs anymore. And I'm looking at it no, me no gusta. I don't like this. Sammy's too young, obviously, to make any change. Because you weren't even in high school at that point.
Greyhawk,
he was.
You were in high school? Okay.
Yeah.
Sammy's too young. Even rewind past that. So the house we were in when the computer incident happened, shortly before that, there was a whole 6-month stint where before things changed and all that kind of stuff, basically I had to guide Sammy. Because at that point, I was in my right mind. I was clean. And I remember Sam getting into high school. He was a freshman. And you had straight A's.
Yeah.
Because I was basically a bully. And I would be dude, you need, and that was because I knew that the discipline I didn't really have, that I needed to find by hook or by crook, Sam needed to have that discipline. Sam needed to have that self-control. And I was scared his freshman year because I knew, I was dude, I just don't want you to try it. Just don't try drugs, right? Because I felt dude, I tried it and I was in trouble. So it's dude, just don't try it, right? And you'll be good, right? And I remember being really aggressive with Sammy, extremely aggressive. I pulled everything out of make sure you were studying and you were doing your homework and you were doing all these things. At that point, I started to get a sense that okay, I think you're gonna have to lead your family. But even still, at that point, I still struggled, right? I still struggled to do what I still knew I needed to do. Fast forward, after Daddy died, I knew nobody was coming to save us. I knew it. I knew that deep down. I was dude, nobody is coming to save you. You see your mom, we know mom, especially being in America, being a Black woman, it's harder, right? I knew that being a young Black man, it'd be easier for me to try to figure out how to save the family or figure out how to set pace, right? Let's not say save, set pace than it would be for mom. Because she'd already, she had to struggle to pay rent, already to make sure she and Sam had a place to stay. And so I asked Mommy for $20 one time, and I'll tell this story probably every episode. I asked her for $20 one time, and I was hey, Mom literally had negative money in her account. And at this point, or maybe a month ago, I had used and I knew I was done using drugs because I had drugs and I was I'm not using it. I was I'm not doing this shit anymore. I was I'm not, this is just not it, dude. I was Wilson, man, this is not it, bro. You got to figure this out. I looked at Sam, I looked at Mom, I was dude, this is not it, bro. This is not it, at all. I can't keep doing this. Yeah, how long more, bro? Nobody is coming at all, period. Like that was when it started to click for me. Right. And then all these things that I'd done, like, and there was probably maybe 3 big ones that I was like, okay, dude, you have to freaking correct these things. Whether you correct them like implicitly or explicitly, I was like, dude, you have to correct these things. And it's funny because like, I mean, at this point in my life, I've probably bought like 100 computers 100 times, right? Like between work, employees, like friends, family, people who need computers for school, kids who are going to school. And like they really hear that story, man. I think it's good. And most importantly, I think it's really good for the people who are listening, who have like siblings or who are the sibling that's being like robbed right now, right? Because I can't imagine how hard it was for you, right? To like experience that, like, and to go through that. I think that must have been really hard for you.
Oh, the harder part, let me tell you, I feel like the trust was broken. And it's not really, you might not even, it's when you stop paying rent and I had to pull your end. That's when I said to myself, I said, oh no. Because I was also trying to make life, and that really stunted my growth covering. Did. So if there's anywhere you can say, somebody broke the trust when I was paying rent.
Yeah. I also felt like I let my family down at that point. And I remember, so this was right before I moved to Georgia.
Right before you moved to Georgia. And then on top of that, I had taken out the loan, and then I had some monies that I had saved. Then I gave you the money for the down payment to buy a Honda Civic.
Yeah.
So that you and I can roll together to school and back, and we can be little buddies.
Yeah.
Getting our life together.
Yeah,
to me, those were
I remember
the bigger things for me, when those were the big paying that rent, making sure that mommy and Sammy can stay.
I remember that. I remember that one.
And
that one was
ones.
like, ooh.
Because everyone in the family said,
okay, so it's pretty clear that you've forgiven me.
Oh, yeah.
For all these things.
No, there's no resentment at all. There was never any resentment.
I know what our relationship is like today. Like there's clearly...
Even at the time, there was no resentment either. There was no resentment. If you look back in retrospect, there was never any resentment.
I would say resentment wasn't there. Caution was maybe. And maybe at that time, the drugs, to me, made the caution look like resentment. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think I ever really felt any resentment. Now, though, do you feel like and just do me this favor, because man, I feel like I'm eating a lot of crow right now. Because a lot of it is really like, my soul is sweating. Like, you really like effed up, dude. Like, what were you even thinking, right? Do you feel like, in retrospect, some sort of reparations have been paid?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Obviously, there are reparations. But then we also are from a culture where people stick together.
Yes.
And we believe that if you must travel fast, you travel alone. If you must travel far in life, you must travel with a group. Mm-hmm. So obviously, that has made it feel like, oh, you know what? This person has come around and it wasn't all so bad after all. Obviously, there is that. But there's also, and you can look at it as reparation, but I don't think of it as reparation. Even if there was no addiction, things will be as is. So that's the most important thing.
I see. Okay. That's really good. Because I'm just like, you really like, yeah. I really, really messed up, man. Like with you guys, like especially sibling bond, like it was kind of broken for a while there. Okay. So then I go off to school in Georgia. I don't really see you guys that often at that point. So there's not really any way to like really F things up. I mean, I came back a few times, traveled back home for like weddings and like.
But there were the calls, of I need XYZ amount of money. I need XYZ amount of money. And the monies that were being asked for weren't adding up. So in my brain, I'm thinking
no, basically almost every other call I made was because there's no reason why I'm in Georgia and I can't pay my rent.
Yeah.
There's like no reason, right? But I definitely prodigal son the whole joint.
Yeah.
Like, it was squandered. Like, there's no reason why I don't graduate in 4 years while I was there. There's no reason why I'm having issues paying rent. There's no reason why towards the end I'm getting like evicted. Like, right, there's no reason for any of that. And so all those calls, man, where towards, and I remember the first time I got evicted in Georgia was from this place called Athens Ridge. And the lady, man, I still remember her. I don't remember her name, but her name started literally with Mama. They called her Mama something. Like, she was so nice. Like, she was so nice. She was like, hey, man, Wilson. She had a Southern accent. So, Wilson, we've been trying to reach you so we can get your rent from you. And I'm like, oh, I have the rent, but I'm not going to pay it. Like, I have the rent, but I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to do this with it. I'm going to do X, Y, Z with it. I'm going to buy for everybody. And I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And that was the first time, like, I ever got evicted. And I remember losing all my stuff. Like, we'd moved quite a bit, but I'd never experienced losing all of my stuff ever before. Like, I lose everything. I'm talking, like, all of my stuff. Like, they evict me. They take, like, everything. I don't have any clothes anymore. I don't have anything. That was really hard at that time. It was really, really hard for me. Like, that was probably one of the, oh, dude, okay, crap. Like, this is no bueno, man. You got to figure it out. It took a second eviction and Daddy, like, passing for me to, like, really,
that jolt.
Yeah, for that jolt to basically hit. So after we lost Daddy, how did you guys feel? Sam?
I guess confused would be the best word to describe my feeling. I mean, it was the first loss I feel like I experienced, like, with, like, death. So for me, it was very confusing because I feel like with most people, until you lose someone who's very close to you, you don't really think too much about losing someone or worry about, like, what it is being gone. So I'd say my initial feeling was kind of like just a lot of confusion and a lot of, like, trying to understand. I knew he wasn't feeling well, but I didn't think it was that, like, serious. In my mind, it was something that, he was getting better and, like, push past it. It wasn't, my mind and my head did not even go towards that, like, because my mind was like, okay, like, I didn't think it was anything.
Right.
Like
How about you?
I still process it till today, if I'm being honest. But the most important feeling I would say was strength. I felt a lot of strength because it taught me that there was another side of me that I didn't know existed. It taught me to be stronger, to fight. But at the same time, it also taught me that I have a tendency to put things in boxes and close them more than anything. So for the first few weeks of Daddy's death, I did not shed a tear, and I'm a crybaby. So I just put it in a whole box. To me, it was like nothing was happening, and like everything's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine.
And you didn't really believe it, like, the first 2 weeks.
For the first 2 weeks, I knew he was dead because I saw his body many, many times. But it just, to me, seemed like so. And even at the funeral, I realized, like, I still didn't process it. And I still didn't process it for a lot of months afterwards. So, but if anything, it's taught me to value life. That's just really what it is. And this is a cycle. Life is a cycle. You're born and then you die. And that is the rigid part of me that processes it.
It is a cycle. Like, I agree with you. It's a cycle. Like, for me, it made me do a lot of thinking. And you guys were, Sam, like, with Sammy, like, Sammy all basically towards the end there had spent the most time with Daddy. Like, and so, but for me, I did get some of that time, right? When I was starting to try to get better, because I had that internship and I'd come home for that internship and I was actually starting to figure it out. Around the time where I'd come back home for an internship and I was kind of sort of figuring it out. I remember he showed me how to, like, make stew. Like, that was like a little bonding experience. Pretty cool. One time he was like, disclaimer, this was illegal, but he was like, hey man, why don't you drive for Uber for me today and make, like, some money? And so I was like, cool. And so I go and drive for Uber for him with his Uber account and he was making money. And I was like, okay, great, cool. I didn't really check, like, how much he was doing. I just knew I just did my driving and at the end of the day, here you go. Like, and I did it like a couple of times right before my internship started. And I went off to the internship And then one time after he had passed, because I knew I was doing that for him, I knew that passcode to his phone and all that kind of stuff. I went back and I looked, and Daddy was clocking like the maximum amount of hours on Uber a day. I think it was like 12 to 14 hours, something like that. And he was bringing in so much. I looked at what I was bringing in and complaining about, and how he was strategically like planning the times he would drive so he could maximize his time. And I was bringing in like maybe 100. Daddy was bringing in like $300 to $400 a day. And I was like, dude, like this is madness. Like, how are you driving for all these hours? He would basically drive till he was clocked off. And I come in to offer him support. And I remember the first time I did it, I was like, are you going to pay me? Like, where's my cut? Like, I did the work. Like, pay me. And he was like, yeah, man, no, I'm not paying you. Like, and after seeing that, after he passed, bro, I broke down, like, crying in that middle bathroom because I was just like, oh my God. Like, and, you know, oftentimes, like, I think that was one of the strengthening experiences that I had where like I didn't know I had it in me to like drive and then let Dad have the money. Like, I don't know. Like, I just thought if you work, you get your own money. Like, but he was like showing me at that time that you have to take care of your family.
That's what a man does.
And taking care of your family means basically do it when it's not convenient. Taking care of your family means you produce more than you consume. Right? It doesn't all go to you, right? You produce a lot more than you consume. And sometimes I think like that was one of the experiences that like made him feel like, okay, this kid is really like improving. He's really like getting better at like whatever it is he's doing. Like he's starting to show up a little bit here, right? Making these little sacrifices here and there and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I was still like going out late at night and all that stuff. And he was like, at that point, he was like, he would call me and leave me voice messages. And I actually have those voice messages stay saved till today. You'd be like, I just checked your room. Like, you're not there. You didn't tell me where you were going. So just let me know where you're going, you know, and be safe. And, you know, all those memories like really helped strengthen like my choice to like, or to strengthen me to be able to like make the choice to be like, yeah, dude, I'm done. And all glory to God, because recovery for me was a process that turned into a miracle. And honestly, without God, it would have been absolutely crazy. I don't know if I would have been able to do it. Like, it was really, really, really nuts. There's a crazy time. Like, there's times I thought, like, I'm going to die. Like, I'm in cars with, like, crazy people, like, doing crazy stuff. Like, you know, getting arrested. Like, that was also another one. Like, so the whole stealing thing, I got arrested for shoplifting in Target at some point. And I had to pay reparations and take classes. And ever since then, that was like the climax for me. I was like, dude, you can't keep taking people's crap. I'm sitting in the back of the cop car, right? And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, dude, like, what an embarrassment you are. Like, such an embarrassment. Like, and I thought to myself, what if mommy found out? And I remember like, it was crazy because right when I was actually getting better, it was like, there was an incident where somebody's necklace had gone missing, right? Like, and it was like, oh, Wilson did it. And I actually didn't do it. Like, and it was later found. Yeah. And it was like, then somebody then brought up like, oh, he did this and he did that. And then they found a mugshot of because I didn't really tell anybody in the family the times I got arrested. And so they pulled up the mugshot, right? And it was like, wow, like the whole family is now passing around my mugshot, right? Like, and it was right around the cusp of when I was about to start really doing well. Like, I was right in the middle of it. Like, I was right about to really just get things going. Like, and I remember a family meeting being called and it was like, you said this and you said that and we know you did this and we know you did that. Like, for sure, like, it was you. And I was just sitting there going, and that's when I called you, like, around that time. And because I told mom, I was like, look, mom, like, I've done all these things, right? But you see who I am now
very different.
Is very different. And you just don't know it because you haven't seen the improvement, right? A lot of the improvement started on the back half of Georgia. Like, the last 1 year there was a lot of introspection, a lot of me spending time going to the gym, spending time with myself, like trying to say no more than I said yes. Like, and she didn't see that. Like, nobody had seen that yet, right? So they're assuming, oh, it's the same guy, he's back again. Now the same thing's happening again. Of course it has to be him. And I was telling her, Mom, I'm not upset at anybody. Like, you know, take for instance, Coco, for instance. Like, I'm not upset at her. Like, why would I be? Like, if she thinks I did it, like, I'm not upset. Of course she would. Because if I was in her shoes, I would say the same thing. It's like the law of deduction. Like, that person didn't do it, that person didn't do it, because they don't ever do it. But this guy always does it, right? Like, so it's like why would I even? And so I knew at that point, like, I had to call you and be like, okay, hey, look, dude, like, that situation, that was me, right? And I'm sorry about that, because I know that, like, that really hurt you, and that really, like, created a dent in our relationship. And I'm looking forward to trying to rebuild that and make it better going forward. Final question, and then you guys get an opportunity to say any things that you want to say or any last words. So in comparison from then to now, like, do you think it's, like, crystal clear that I've changed in who I am? How would you look at that comparison? What would you, if you could summarize that journey into a paragraph, what would you say, Sam?
I mean, definitely, like, I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, the way I look at things now, and just with me and, like, with you and, like, with everyone, is like the path everyone takes or the way everyone gets to a certain destination is just all part of the journey. I think we have to go through certain things to get to where you are. So the way I look at it is all those experiences you had, all those mistakes you made, you needed to make those mistakes to get to where you are, to be who you are. Yeah, I guess the word, I mean, it's growth. That'd be the word, it's just growth. That'd be the best word to describe who you are now to who you are then. It's just growth.
Facts. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Very good. What do you think?
Of course, you're different from when you had the addiction versus when you didn't. There were lots of disappearing sprees. There was a lot of hiding things at the time. It's different now. You share your location. Those are like basic differences. Like, you're a little bit more open.
A little bit more open?
Or you're more open. You're more of an open book. You were always an open book because you were my little buddy. And, you've always been, it's almost like we've always had, like, we're next to each other as far as, and like I said, earlier memories of childhood, you were always there in a way. And so, but this time you're open. It's not like you're like, look, I'm going to XYZ and I'm doing XYZ stuff. You're open. There's a difference between when you're in an addiction and you never told me that you were doing drugs. You know what I mean? You never told me that you were having struggles with certain things. Now, if you have one or something's going on, you're open. That's a major difference. That's difference number one as far as character goes. Difference number two is you're productive. That's difference number two. You're productive. I can trust that. I mean, siblings, for non-Nigerians, there's something we say, it's called wayo. And it means that you play tricks on your siblings.
Right.
Your siblings play tricks on each other all the time. But there's a difference because now I can bank on, okay, if Wilson says we're going to do this and this is how we're going to do it, you can bank on it. Versus before now, and I did mention that story of, you're supposed to pay 30% of rent, and now I'm paying 60% of the rent because, mom has, you know what I mean?
Right, I do.
So now I can bank on it. Like, okay, if this person says 1, it's 1, minus the little tricks that siblings play. That's the number.
And those tricks are necessary. It's good for your health.
Those are the true things that I can say as far as character. And overall, the way people look at you now versus the way people looked at you before, it makes my heart glad in that way. That's like, okay, so I talked about the character differences now versus then. And now this is the way people look at you now versus then. And I feel like Sam said, a lot of the things we go through make us who we are. I like that you can influence other people. And I feel like a lot of the things you would call, I remember once you called and you said, Coco, I think that I found light, and I found God and I was processing this and this happened and this happened. And I remember, the reason why I remember that incident is because I rolled my eyes in my head. I said, oh Lord, there we go again. He might just fall off the bandwagon again. Because he said it many times, like, I'm going to get my stuff together and I'm going to handle this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. and he falls behind the mark. He doesn't quite hit the mark. And I like that when you say, you go after it. And that's been a beautiful thing to watch. And so those are the...
What do you mean when you say? Like when you say...
So for instance, like I said, you called me many times, and through your journey, you've called me many times, and I'll get these calls where you have this little rambles. Half of the time I wonder like, is he on something or is he just...
Yeah.
Is he on, and my brain thinks, my brothers, you're a naturally passionate person and you're very emotional. So you ride the emotional highs with the highs, and you ride the emotional lows with the lows. You're very different from Sam and I. Sam and I sometimes don't acknowledge things. It's like something can be here, but most of the thing happens on the inside, versus you who rides on the highs and it's visible that there's a high. And when there's a low, it's visible that there's a low. So you would have these calls where you talk about all the things you want to do in the future, just the way you would as a child. But this time, you don't follow through. It's just a matter of time you fall off the bandwagon on that journey. And
So you're saying that's how I used to be.
That's the way you used to be.
I
Now, if you tell me, you know what, we're going XYZ, I can follow with you. And 2, I can trust that you will fulfill your promise to yourself.
Wow. I didn't even think about that. So, wow. So basically, you've watched me set marks, hit those marks, say things, do those things, set goals, start companies.
Yeah.
And so that's giving you confidence.
That is giving me confidence versus before. As much as, when you're a child, you can't do anything with your dreams. As a child, people would say, I'd like to be this, I'd like to do that, but you can't do so much with your dreams as a child. But then you get to your teenage years and your early 20s, and then, and even your mid 20s, and you can do something with these dreams. So why do you say these things and not
follow through?
Not follow through.
Wow.
So that's... the difference now. In the last few years, you say it, and I remember when you said you were coming back to live in Arizona, Mommy called me. Mommy was crying. Mommy said, your brother. Mommy said, can you advise your brother? Mommy said, can you advise your brother? Please, beg your brother to just let him just try to finish school in Georgia.
I remember.
Please, beg your brother.
I remember having that conversation.
And I remember I thought to myself, Lord.
No, but I knew at that point, leaving Georgia, I knew that I was figuring it out. I knew. Because I was already kind of moving towards the right way. And I knew nobody was going to listen or believe me. I knew that.
I panicked so much.
I thought Mom wanted you to... I thought Mom
I knew that.
wanted you to come back.
No.
I didn't know she wanted you to stay.
No.
Because after Daddy passed, it was like, what am I going to come back for? There was nothing to come back to.
It's so
Is what it seemed like.
Mommy and I
But I knew
had
I needed
a whole
to come back and
panic
build
attack.
something. Wow.
When you said you were coming back, I was like, there we go again.
Wow.
Here we go again with these grandiose dreams that he does not follow through with. And then he creates a mess out of everything. Wow. And then I'm like, oh, Lord.
Oh, wow.
But it's different now. So that's a great thing.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing to see.
It's different because when Mom wanted me to come back when I was in school.
I wanted you to come back.
Everybody wanted you to come back.
Yours was easy. To me, I was like, if he comes back, it's easy.
This is better if he comes back.
If he comes back. Plus, I had bread at that point, so I was like, if he comes back, he's gonna be good. He just needs to come back to where we're close by with him. Guys, thank you so much for this. This has been awesome, actually. I think we'll probably do this again. Thank you. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Sober Social Club podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review and feel free to share it with somebody you think might benefit from this. Don't forget to tune in next week for another inspiring episode. Until then, remember, tough times don't last. Tough men do. Stay strong and keep living your best life.